The very first Article 5 application submitted in 1789 by Virginia was for the Bill of Rights. Congress has no authority in this matter. They don't choose the delegates. They don't make the rules. It all falls under the states. The convention is the institutional rival against Congress. Why in the world would the state legislatures want to give them any? It makes absolutely no sense. But a gentleman previously also mentioned a John Birch Society scholar, I laugh at that, by the name of Robert Brown. And what Mr. Brown does is goes around the country. He's offered a $10,000 challenge, and this is his challenge. Find for me one delegate of the Federal Convention of 1787 that stood up and believed they had the authority to propose a new system of government. And he says it doesn't exist. It's on your sheet there. You'll see this. I've answered that challenge over 5 times. He owes me $10,000. I've got a YouTube channel just for that $10,000. It's called All Things Article 5. I encourage you, please watch my 5 episodes so far requesting the $10,000 payment because I overwhelmingly destroy his lie.
Ken Quinn used to work for Convention of States. And if you didn't see the close, I hope you saw the close. I hope we got that recorded because that's one of the best closes I've ever heard in my life. He's an expert on the John Birch Society and what a scam they are. I mean, he's somebody who's been personally inside the John Birch Society. He knows what a scam they are. He's completely debunked everything they've said. Robert Brown offers this $10,000 reward. I think it is very clear that he is owed that $10,000 reward, and I'm glad he's going after it. Robert Brown owes him $10,000 at this point.
And so it begins. Hey, everybody, here we go. I might be hitting a record here with 3 nights in a row with our regularly scheduled Wednesday Night Live, so you can catch us every Wednesday at 5:30. And then yesterday, I went on my psycho rant over this over the Ukraine situation. And now the next day, we get Article 5 news. So today, I got a signal message from my buddy over there in Massachusetts, Michael Arnold, hooking me up, getting me the inside scoop. I was working, but he was like, "Hey, right now, live, New Hampshire." I was like, boom, flipped it up, started watching, and caught some really excellent testimony. So who you saw there in the intro was Ken Quinn. Ken was on the show in the past. He's got his channel, Article 5, All Things Article 5. I definitely recommend if you're a JBS person, if like JBS has convinced you that Article 5 is the scariest thing in the world, go check out his channel because I've done videos debunking JBS, but he's got a channel that's pretty much dedicated to it. And like Meckler was saying at the end of that clip, this guy Robert Brown, who travels the country for JBS and has this talking point of a $10,000 challenge that he's been raving about and calling people out on, and in the end, Ken Quinn just started that 5 different times he earned that $10,000. What the challenge was roughly was that he was challenging anyone to provide examples or quotes of our founders who that demonstrated that they felt that they were within their commissions to write the Constitution, right? Because the narrative that they created, this whole runaway convention, the entire narrative is based on a lie. And it's based on the concept, and you might have heard it before, that our Constitution was that our founders went in with one assignment to just simply revise the Articles of Federation and of Confederation, and then went in and just went haywire and said, screw that, we're writing a whole new Constitution, and then just came out and shocked the world with it. It's not how it went down. and there are Federalist Papers. If you want to hear it from the founders, pick up Federalist Paper 40, an often misquoted Federalist Paper by JBS that they use one of the last lines of the freaking letter to try and make a point. If you read the whole letter, it's Madison outlining the very fact that they absolutely were within their commission to do what they did. And that's evidenced also by the fact that it was ratified. So yes, Rhode Island was a problem. And yes, there were some issues with the anti-federalists, and thank God there were, right? Because we got the Bill of Rights out of that, and other and Article 5. So and at least clause 2 of Article 5. So and now New Hampshire has heard testimony before committee. So you may have noticed in that intro the room looked kind of empty. Ken was the absolute last person to speak, but the room wasn't totally full before that because the whole house was not assembled. It was just the committee. So the way, if you're not familiar with the way bills pass, they have to be presented before committee. Each state uses a different committee depending on how they align the topic, but they meet before committee, which is usually like 3 or 4 representatives, sometimes as many as 5 or 6 or so, and they basically hear out their constituents and make a decision as to whether or not something is going to go to the House for a vote or not. And so that's why there were not that many people in there, because it wasn't a full assembly. Really, this was the citizenry giving testimonials on Article 5. And what great testimony! I have to give kudos to grassroots in general. I know I only focused on Ken Quinn in the intro, but like all throughout, they just do such a phenomenal job of going and respectfully, presenting their case, and just the whole cordial nature of it all is just fantastic. And the educational side of it, where the citizenry is waking up, like watching citizenry go up and make these testimonials. There was a 75-year-old man who got up there and made it clear that the reason he was there to support Article 5, the Article 5 petition, was because of his grandchildren. And that's how we should all be thinking, right? We should all be thinking of our children and grandchildren, because that's what they're the reason we need to stop socialism, the WEF, this globalist movement, break ourselves away from it, get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals, start spending, normally within a budget, like do those basic fundamental things that this convention will be calling for. And it's just awesome to hear these people come up there. And I can tell you, yeah, some John Birch Society folks went up there for sure. And I pointed out the point of Ken's testimonial where he says, someone mentioned the JBS scholar Robert Brown, and and then laughed because it's a joke. It's a joke. And he, if you haven't seen Ken's debunking of JBS, I mean, he gets into it, even to the fact that he's even got a video out there showing that they actually were proposing their own convention, and we're actually using Article 5 for what they called the Liberty Amendments. Is different than the book that Levin put out. This was many decades ago, but they were all adamant about it and going all after an Article 5 convention, and then suddenly they flipped. When I see people flip like that, immediately it's suspect. But when you look at both sides, and you listen to both sides' case, that's why I always tell people, listen to JBS, hear him out, and then go read the history and verify what they're telling you. Because what you find when you have the truth on your side, you don't have to do trickery. You don't have to, like they did this ridiculous Scalia video that I tore to shreds. And that's a good video to watch. You guys should check that out. You find it in my you could easily find it in my YouTube playlist. There's a debunking runaway convention series, but I have that series on Facebook as well. And the videos, they don't do series on Rumble, but you can find the series just in separate videos on Rumble. But that's the type of trickery that they use. And when their guys came up, I know they're JBS people, even when they don't say JBS, because there's only one argument, and it's JBS's. And so you hear them making it, and that they learned this from JBS. And it's sad to see, because these are otherwise people who we generally would agree with on almost everything. But they just, they don't get it. They believe in JBS. They're in that like cult of JBS, and it's unfortunate, but Danny here on Facebook. How you doing, Danny? Good to see you again. Let's get it done. I'll support anything to save our republic. Yeah, this is the way, bro. This is the way. And I think Montana is actually hearing it now too. I'm a little. I don't know if they're televising it. I think that's why. But I saw Convention of States post something with Rick Santorum speaking. Rick Santorum, you know from his political career, but he obviously has left politics and or at least being a politician and has joined on to this movement. So oh, that's me. Be sure to comment, like it, and ask questions. All right. Let's see what we got here. All right. So I mean, the bottom line is though, I want to hear from you guys how fired up you are about this getting underway. And that's why I said in the intro, so it begins, because the legislators just popped up. The legislatures around the country just popped open in January. I think 43 of them opened in January. And there's 49 petitions out there. Now, I don't know, this first phase is where the ones that are in this first phase are the ones that are interesting to me. Although there are some 30 or so, I don't have the exact numbers. If any of my college folks are on, how many of them already passed one house? But there's a grip of them that have already passed one chamber. Montana's looking good. I've heard Meckler say Idaho is looking good. I've heard him say Pennsylvania got a little messy. I don't know what's going on in Pennsylvania. It was looking phenomenal, and then it got a little wacky. But I think it still looks good there, because even with this Fetterman do-through, they still have like that. Fetterman has no say in something like this. This is the regular state legislatures. So we're looking forward to stuff there. We've got North Carolina. North Carolina looks really good. So there's a lot of action going on that's going to be happening in the next few weeks or next couple of months. So stay tuned. Make sure you're following, and to the Facebook and YouTube folks. So just so you know, if you're not getting alerts, I'm trying to look into this, right? Because I don't want to just believe they're shadow banning me. Like I have to think there might be some other logical reasons, and there are. At least there's one. So I think, and you guys can confirm this for me, when you follow the page, at least on Facebook, when you follow it, there's actually options, and you have to actually hit. It'll default to like get notifications some of the time, but if you change it, you can change it to just get notifications. So this way, when I go live or I drop, I don't drop a ton of stuff. It's not like notifications are going to be blowing up, but in the end, this way, especially when I go live, you can get an alert, so you can jump on and check it out, because I definitely love the engagement, and the more people, the merrier. Let me open up my Rumble window here. And Rumble folks, I can't put, I see there's like 8 or 9 watching on Rumble. I can't put your comments up on the screen, but if you comment, I will respond to them live. Okay. So the live chat is right next to the right of the video screen. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And let me just make sure the stream is going here. My stream doesn't seem to be moving. Oh yeah, it's moving. Okay, good. I was like, how can they be watching? What are they watching? So, and then Twitch, you guys are what you are. So, we love you, but Twitch is, I think we got like 7 followers on Twitch. I just go on Twitch because I can. There's just one more button to click while I'm setting up the stream, and it adds Twitch to the game. And every once in a while, we do get some cool international folks that jump on from Twitch. So I like to keep it. I like to keep that going for sure. But yeah, I'm fired up, guys, because we're gonna start seeing movement coming quickly. We're gonna start seeing we're all of a sudden. This is what happened last year. It was like, because everyone says, "Oh man, I want to see more movement, more this, more that." But it's like you have to understand how these processes work, right? Like constitutional amendments, they're not quick fixes. They take time. Right? They take time, and doing it this way takes even longer, but it's better, right? It's better doing it this way. Congress has no say in what gets proposed, and that's what we need. Is it not? Is it not what we need, right? Do we really want Congress having a say in what we're proposing here? The whole point of what we need to do is put them in check. So we know as patriots, and And when I say patriots, I want people to understand too. There's plenty of Democrats who love this country. They're not all Marxists. So and if you're one of them, then you're in on this, right? You're in on this. So in the end, we all know what we need. We all know what needs to get done. When they poll the citizenry, right, on the subject matter of convention of states, it polls majority across the board. All Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody has a majority support. I think it was like 55 or 56% of Democrat voters support term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach amendments. We all agree. We found topics that we all agree on. And if we can't act on those topics, if we can't even agree, right? Because what's happening is we're hearing politicians try to politicize this, and we haven't seen opposition yet. Okay, like JBS is one thing, bunch of doo-doo-doos, but when we get to if we pull off a quick hit like we did last year, and there's like four states that just come right after each other, boom, 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 all of that's going to put us at 23. And it's right around that mark where you're going to start to see the machine start to take notice. That's when you're going to start to really hear, that's when you're going to see JBS people getting interviewed on CNN 5 times a week. Okay. That's when you're going to, and right after them will be the Soros people who hold the same position JBS does. Just the irony of that is just insane. But in the end, that's what you're going to start hearing, the madness. You're going to start hearing the attacks. There is nothing that Marxists fear more. Nothing. Do they fear more than a convention of states on these types of topics, right? If they could get 34 states to agree on doing some crazy stuff, they'd love that. But they'll never get that because they're a fake majority. They don't even exist. The numbers of these Marxists are not even real. They're not even real. There's probably 25% of the country that falls under that craziness. And then the other 25% is the media just making it look, the media putting all the mirrors around to multiply how many people there are. So, but when it comes down to what they fear, they don't talk about it now because they don't want to promote it, right? Like you're not going to hear. You'll hear them fight it in legislatures or in places like that. But you're not going to see them fighting it in the media. You're not going to see them making a big deal about it until they come to the conclusion that it's going to move forward and is likely going to succeed. Then there's nothing to lose. Then they're going to go out there. I'm telling you, you're going to see an insane effort to try and shut it down and try and poison your head and make you think that the Constitution is not something that we want to use. And I'm warning you now because you need to stay strong through that. Don't fall for that BS. But I know the people that are following this channel, they ain't friggin'. they're not buying all that junk. So we must weed out deep state operatives to prevent the event from being captured. This is the number one worry on this. Yeah. So deep state operatives. So I get it. Everybody's afraid of deep state and this, that, and whatever. I mean, the reality is they have no say here. All right. No one in the government, no one in the feds have say. So if you want to make the argument that the deep state is going to strong arm the state legislatures we got to remember who our state legislators are and why they were given this power. There's a reason for it, right? There's a reason for it. The people. Perfect example is New Hampshire. I was listening to Meckler talk about the guys in these reps in New Hampshire. They make, how much they make, these overpaid, money hungry grubs? $100 a year. That's what they make. The price, the fee was set, or the pay was set in like 1700 something, and they never changed it. These people are servants. Okay, that's what they are. They're statesmen and they're statesmen and women in service and servants. Okay, so in the end, these are the people you want going up there, right? These are the principled people, and they're not going to be going into the convention, but they're going to be selecting. They're the ones that are going to be running this whole process. Of course, with us providing feedback the entire way. Like there's no lack of engagement once, once it all starts. It's not like 34 states submit petitions and all of a sudden we're done and we walk away. No, we need to be all over the delegate selection process, all over, the amendment process, what amendments we want to hear, that sort of thing. Because I know I think of like new ones every day. I don't know about you. I think of new ones every day. But like even like the single subject amendment, like I know the new rules package included that in there, which was good. Kudos to those 5 House members who were able to fight and get that in. But I'd like to see that in the Constitution, and I'd like to see it more specific. I'd like to see like a 10-page limit on legislation. There's no need. You can get your point across in 10 pages. I don't care what you're trying to accomplish. You can get your point across in 10 pages. Number 8 font, 10 pages, right? And one subject. Because once they start getting into 80 pages, 1,000 pages, 1,600 pages, there's nothing in there that's good, right? There's nothing in there that's in the best interest of the American people. Any layman should be able to read legislation that passes and it makes sense and understand what it is that their representative is voting for or against. And that's not where we are now. They write these bills. They don't even read these bills. So like all of that needs to stop. All of that needs to stop. But I could sit there and think of freaking amendments all day long. All day long. I mean, there's no end to how many amendments. As a matter of fact, drop in the comments an amendment that you would like to see. Now, remember, it's got to stay within the 3 topics, right? So it's got to be, I mean, term limits kind of is what it is. Although term limits include deep state there, Danny. So, that's another piece of it. They include all federal officials, not just elected. So to the doo-doo-doos that are like, we have term limits, they're elections. No, it's not just the elected officials who are getting term limited. All right. That's one piece that people should understand. But then with respect to fiscal restraints, under the topic of fiscal restraints, under the topic of government overreach of authority, what amendments would you guys like to see? And that's, that, and I'll put them up here and we'll discuss them if we get enough of them. Alex Sains over in Facebook, the problem is you have Republicans that are really Democrats. Yeah, I get it. That's why we need this, right? That's what you have in the federal government. All right, that's what you have in the federal government, and that's why we need this. That's why they can't be involved in this. Like, I don't want Mitch McConnell's fingers touching anything that has to do with this process, and they won't, because they have they have 2 responsibilities for those that don't know. So Congress has 2 responsibilities in the convention. When they receive 34 petitions, okay, they shall call the convention, exactly how it's written in the Constitution. Not they may call a convention, not they will decide how a convention is formed and structured, none of that. They just call the convention. It's just an office, an administrative responsibility. And the second thing that they get is that, and they have this even with the traditional way, is that they can decide whether it's ratified by conventions that in each state, not a convention of all states, but each state would select its own convention, or if the state legislatures do the ratification. That's always been the case. They always had that option. And it doesn't matter because the legislators choose the convention members, so it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But that's their only play. And then here we go, love term limits. Everyone loves term limits, right? And Ken Quinn, I might try and have him back on again. It's been a while. And Ken Quinn he used to be with COS. He actually used to be with JBS, John Birch Society, realized how full of crap they were, left, which many people that have come over to COS have come from John Birch Society, because once they read up on it and realized it, they felt lied to, because they were lied to. And then they come over and end up, most of them, taking leadership positions and doing a great job for the cause. But when it comes, he's with an organization, U.S. Term Limits, and he and I have gone back and forth on should it be just term limits? Should we go for everything? And I'm on the go for everything side. He's on the term limit side. But we're both on the same side when it comes to getting these petitions passed. The fact of the matter is, if there are 19 petitions, it's not like he's against fiscal restraints and government overreach. It's just he thinks it's too much to go for in one shot. And I'm like, I ain't got another 10 years to wait. If I gotta wait an extra year, but we get amendments on all three topics, it's worth it to wait the extra year than to just get term limits, because term limits have effect. They're impactful, but they're not the biggest game changer in play here. At least in my opinion. In my opinion, the biggest game changers in play are the other two. Right. So term limits is impactful because you instantly get rid of the Mitch McConnells and Nancy Pelosi's and, Feinsteins and these people who are just like, who are just dust up there, right? Ashes. But at the same time, fiscal restraints and government overreach. Now we're talking. Now we're shutting down the Board of Education, right? Now we're shutting down OSHA and the EPA and all of these regulatory agencies that have been harassing citizens for decades and decades and decades. States can manage the EPA can exist as like an advisory council, but the idea that they have regulatory power, like there's no power there. Nobody in the EPA is accountable to the people. So nobody in the EPA gets to make any type of rule or regulation, period. You want to recommend stuff, you want to run studies, I guess so. But you're not showing up at some guy's farm and telling him he's got to pay $10,000 a freaking day for every day that he doesn't freaking do something, stupid, like fill up a freaking water thing, and he has a small creek in his backyard, and he's got to fill it up with dirt, or he's going to get like all those ridiculous stories that are all true of them harassing American citizens. All of that needs to go. And OSHA is another irrelevant agency, completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. The states can handle work safety. This is not like we're not building missiles here. Building missiles, that's a federal government job, right? Rocket science, all that, if it's going to be for the military, then yeah, fine. But it ends there. And so let me see. Do I have anybody on Rumble? Speaking of, here we go. We got Arlo Perry 3. How are you, Arlo? Says delete federal government, completely develop state governors. Yeah, I don't know if I'm down with deleting the federal government. It was created for a reason. It just needs to have the powers that it needs to have. The founders looked at it as a necessary evil, right? So when you say delete the federal government, and those because I can't put it up on the screen, so it's delete federal government, completely develop state governors. So delete federal government completely, develop state governors. And then it's state governors board to replace whole federal government, right to travel amendment. All right, I don't know what the right to travel amendment would. If you could articulate that, Arlo, I'd appreciate it. But I don't know if I agree with you on that one, and that wouldn't be under these topics anyway. So we'd have to call a whole new convention for that. Because if you want to just delete the federal government, that's not addressing overreach. That's deleting the federal. That's a little bit much. If they did bring that up in convention, it would be out of order and it would get shot down. The states, of course, would never ratify something like that. Wild Stallion 3292 over on YouTube. 16A and 17A need to get repealed. I'm with you 110%. So for those of you who don't know, who aren't versed in your amendments, the 16th is income tax, which is theft. It is unconstitutional and was ruled unconstitutional eternally, with the exception of the Civil War, because they were in a war. And as soon as the war ended, they pulled it again, and they tried to do it again. It got shot down again, and then the left just waited for the right opportunity when the climate was perfect. It took them like 15 years, but they got the 16th Amendment passed on the statement that it would only be to the wealthy. Right? Have we heard that? And look what it's grown into. So in the end, absolutely, there should be tariffs, and that's it. Consumption tax, that's it. That's it. The government needs funding. I don't want, and to Arlo's point earlier, I don't want to see, a group of 50 governors running our military. Like, we need an executive for things like that. There needs to be an executive, and there needs to, like, it's set up right. We need what we have now structurally, but we need it. It's structurally broken right now, and that needs to be repaired. And before that's repaired, elections are not going to matter. And it's not because it doesn't matter. People are like, oh, well, elections don't matter because they're fixed. Or whatever. That's not even the thing. Elections could be the most pristine, greatest process, pure as freaking water. But the bottom line is, you take a good person and you elect them and you put them into office, and they just get eaten by this structurally broken system. That's what made these 5 people that stepped up so significant. That's what made them so significant. It wasn't just that they changed the rules or that they got what they wanted. It was, traditionally, the way the government has operated is that these young House representatives are irrelevant as far as everyone in the House is concerned. They're freshmen or whatever. It's like high school, literally. And like, so what about the people who elected these folks? So they now get less representation because they elected somebody new to the House. And now all the people, the McCarthys of the world, and they all want to look down on these people. Well, these 5 stood up and got it done, and it was phenomenal that they did that. And the 17th Amendment, what Wild Stallion is saying here, if you're not aware, we did not always directly elect our senators. All right. Their terms are 6 years because we were supposed to be able to have them repealed. All right. So they used to be appointed by state legislatures. All right. And then if you have a problem, if the people don't like what their senator is doing, then you go to your local legislators and start raising hell. And those legislators respond by pulling that senator. So can you imagine the power to when we watch Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney go off the rails? Can you imagine just having the power to go down to your local representative's office and demand that he be pulled, and just start a movement on that, and have Romney pulled out of there, or have Liz Cheney pulled out of there? That's the way that's the way it was designed to be set up. Now, the way they did it now, and the left was very crafty when they did this as well, is they set it up with a direct election so that now the state legislature has lost power. All right, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. It was designed to create that wedge in between states and federal government. One less thing that the states can control about the federal government. It's not a good thing. I understand some people instinctively are like, well, it's better if we vote. It's better if we vote for them. You vote for your legislator. If you don't like who they end up selecting, you can pressure them. They're much easier to pressure than the doo-doo that now is in Washington and you never get to see. This guy's in your local county. He's in your district. You don't need to travel to D.C. to get your point across. But they want you to have. They want that to be insurmountable. And that's why they did that. So good call out, Wild. I appreciate that. That is absolutely 2 things that have to go. And I can tell you, as we implement things like a balanced budget amendment and stuff like that, as these things get, if there's a real balanced budget amendment with teeth, right? And I want everyone to understand where my head is with this. If the government tries to do these amendments on their own, right before we get to 34, like, people need to be like, no, this time we're going through with it. This time we're completing it. You're not going to give us a watered down version of what we're asking for. This is punishment for federal officials. This is not a, let's negotiate. You've already crossed that line. You can't unslam a door. They've already done the damage. The idea that they can be trusted to fix it is ridiculous. So let me see. I got some more comments here. Danny over on Facebook, cast off and replace is sounding better all the time. Our government is a foreign entity. Yeah, it you got to refrain from that, right? So just because the government's broken doesn't mean it can't be fixed. I have this conversation regularly with our international following, and they like, they bring. I love those guys because they bring a unique perspective, right? So now, like, I get people from the BRICS countries, and a lot of Europeans will speak up, and their perception of the way we do things is interesting because it's very much like us, where you know they don't see themselves as responsible for what their government does, but a lot of them see us responsible for what our government does. So like, and there's no one, especially in the BRICS countries, there's no government that's running well, that is not corrupt and having issues. The difference with the United States, though, is that we have the unique power to fix it, like fix it permanently, fix it. There's no point, and this is why I tell people, this is going to be in history books. Like when this gets done, this is going to be in history books. If we get a majority of these amendments ratified, right? Because let's remember, they got to get ratified still. So even though it's ridiculous to think that crazy amendments would get proposed, even the ones we want, it's still a hard process to get ratified. I mean, even Scalia was saying this should be it should be hard, but it shouldn't be this hard. Like, think about it. There are like, what, 99 legislative branches in the states. Only 13 of them have to reject this, all right? Because it doesn't have to get rejected by both houses in the state. One house in the state can reject it, and it's rejected. So, like, the state has to be in full agreement of it. So we got to get this stuff through, right? And that's another big thing about keeping the amendment topics and the proposals within range, right? They don't want to be throwing stuff out there that has no shot of making it. It's a waste of time, right? They're not gonna put term limits at friggin' 1 year, right? Like that's just ridiculous, right? So they're gonna set things up reasonably and think it out and take their best shot. And because if they don't, they have no chance. There's nothing will get approved, will get ratified. The most powerful form of government in the USA should be the state legislatures. And it is. It is. It doesn't look like that now, right? But it is. Like the state legislatures are indeed, they lost power with the 17th Amendment. There's no doubt about that. But in the end, they are, when they come together, it's like forming Voltron. When they come together, it's an unstoppable force. The federal government, everyone has to remember, is the child here. The federal government is the child. The states birthed that child. And that child's been running around playing ball in the house and keeps breaking mom's vase, and nobody's stopping it, right? But there is a trigger for us to stop it. We just have to realize it. Like that, I thought it would be challenging to explain this to people, but in the end, like, I didn't think it was going to be as difficult as sometimes it is. Like the people that believe it, they don't trust anything, right? They don't trust anything. So I shouldn't even say they believe. They don't believe anything. And that's no good either. Like, the truth still exists. Even though people are constantly trying to bend it, twist it, turn it, and throw it away, it still exists and it's still relevant. And we still need to move towards it. And the truth is, the power does lie, like Wild's saying here, in the state legislatures. So not the federal branches or the alphabet agencies. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. So Wild's hitting home runs here with me anyway, because this is all right up my alley. We're right here, Wild. We're right here. All right. Alex over in Facebook, each state should elect their own with no out-of-state money. Yeah, that I could agree with. I'm actually, I've actually said I'm okay with no private money. Like one of the things, campaigns, I'm okay with taxpayer money funding campaigns, and have a set amount of funds for each candidate. They each get the same amount of money, and just let them have at it. Like that's how it should be to me. Like to me, one of the things that tax money, that's a government function, right? Like that's something that serves the people, right? So rather than have one guy have a $10 million war chest and the other guy have a $5 million war chest, it also would open up the door for people who aren't wealthy or don't have connections to raise money to come in with a fair shake, to come in with a fair shake of ideas. It's like, dude, we each got $1 million to play with, right? We each got $1 million. I may be broke and you may be rich, but for this campaign, it's a million and a million, and that's it. And let some of those ideas come out. Some of these, some of these people who are crazy smart, but like they're just not super wealthy. Let's hear from them. That's kind of where I know that that's not going to happen, but like that's just something that that's something that I believe in. I guess that's just something I believe in. See what we got here. So Danny, so let me see. I got anything else here? Arlo Perry says the Supreme Court is from Rumble. Supreme Court ruled right to travel. Yeah. I'm not as well versed in that though, Arlo. I apologize for my own ignorance, but I am not as well versed in that. So but in the end, like I want to be with you on those points. I feel like we'd probably agree on like 90% of what we of how this nation should be. And I feel that way with most people, even with these John Birch Society people. Like the only thing that really John Birch goes off the rails with is Article 5. And that's why I think the entire organization is set up at this point. I know they've been around for a long time, but in the past, they were actually proposing their own convention. So the fact that they flipped and only flipped on this one crucial issue tells you something. It tells you something. In the world we live in now, it tells you something. So, but Danny says, "Is a corporation? It's a corporation now, so business law, more distortion and corruption with no end. We can definitely do better. The grand experiment continues." Yeah, and that's a good point. Is the experiment right? Like and I use this to beat up Marxists a lot in arguments because when they pick a point in history or they pick some atrocity in history and say, oh well, the US did this, or oh the US did that, and and this year the US did this, and so, look what JP Morgan, Rockefeller, and look at how they treated people. Like it's an experiment, folks. Like this has never been done before in history. All right. So yeah, did were we all about wild west capitalism in the beginning? Absolutely. All right. Then we got the Titans, right? And we were like, all right, maybe, maybe there does need to be some limit, right? Where someone does get big enough where they can just buy up everybody and now there's no competition. So we made antitrust laws. Like there are things out there that that we're learning as we go, right? As we go. Like the Constitution, they didn't address the slavery issue. Well, a lot of blood was spilled to address that issue later. And it took many years after that before society really came around, right? But you know what? We're there now, despite what all these psychos say, despite what all this critical race theory and all that says. We're at that place where everybody can be successful without that type of discrimination. And so we continue, the experiment continues. So I like that terminology, Danny, is that the experiment continues. And right now, we go backwards to regain some of the freedoms we've lost, but we get to keep all the good experiences that we've changed and had. Like we have that option, and the nation continues to grow. Right. Once we debunk this and take down this military industrial complex, we now know how bad that is. Right. Like if we don't come up with this, we'll come up with a solution for it eventually. And when we do, right? And this is all a part of taking it back and a whole part of the growing process. We'll look back in history and be like, yeah, we're not letting that happen again, right? Because I tell you right now, these Marxist kids, that like they're gonna grow old, being looked at by younger generations as a failed experiment. That's what they're going to be looked at as. That's how I see it. These people are going to become seniors, and it's just going to be a failed experiment. So Arlo over here, and I got another comment on Rumble. Governor's board with the president and vice president Only function of the governor's board would be protecting our border. All other current federal functions go to the states. Yeah, you know what? I would be okay with the governors all being in control of the border. I don't have a problem with that. But you can accomplish that without having to like take stuff down. You know what I mean? So I'm all right with the states take, and you know what? It may be the case. Like this is one of the things about Article 5. It's like once we do this, like these are huge topics, right? With sweeping change that is going to forever change the relationship between government and the people, but they don't fix everything, right? Like there are still issues out there, even when we get this done. But here's where it comes in: is that once this is done, the very precedent that is now set, like JBS will just have to close its doors, right? They'll just have to shut down because there won't be any argument anymore. It'll have been done, and the only thing keeping them alive is that it hasn't been done yet. But once it's done and the precedent is set, now we're playing offense, right? Now we're on offense. So like now we're in a position where the federal government knows, because it's not like all of our phenomenal millions of grassroots right now and the millions that are about to come. It's not like all of those people just disappear. But what we do have to learn is that we need to teach our children how important this was, right? And how significant this was, and that they too they need to pass that to the next generation, etc. Never let it slip again, right? Never let it slip again, because I guarantee you, Marxists are not going away. It doesn't matter how bad you beat them. It doesn't matter how much history frowns upon them. They will always find another young generation that's vulnerable, and they will go after it. If the parents and adults aren't focused on it, they will never, ever, ever stop. Know that. Know that they will never stop. Let me see if I got something else here. Uh, bu- 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 So, so Danny's saying they got around the laws and the corporation is allowing the monopolization of everything. Yeah, let me be clear, okay? It's the government dominating these corporations, not the other way around. And I'm not saying that in a way that you should feel bad for a CEO or whatever. It's just how it is. Right now, if you're not familiar with ESG scores, you got some reading to do. But environmental, social, and governance scores are everything right now. And corporations don't set those. They have to follow those. And let me tell you, on the social side of it, like this is why you see Coca-Cola having trainings where they're telling their staff be less white, and they're not afraid of any backlash, because they get funding by acting like that. All right. WEF created these standards by using the big four: Deloitte, Ernst Young, etc., PCW, KPG. Those are the big four. All right. They're private companies. So they're not like BlackRock. They're private companies. So no one's investing in them, but they're the largest four private investment firms in the world. And that's who came up with the ESG regulations. Okay. And they've got a whole, understand they're meaningless except to grab power. That's all they are. All they are is a tool to grab power. That's it. And if you're not, they already started attacking Elon Musk, who's already been critical of them because he speaks plainly. Anybody who speaks plainly knows the devil that's in these ESG scores. Okay, but every major company in the world right now, at least in the West, are all following this nonsense. Not because they want to, because they have to. They're literally treating it like it's a credit score. Like it will hurt investment money from companies like BlackRock and Vanguard and Deloitte and Ernst and Young, and all that investment money will dry up if you don't play the game. So don't get it twisted. And I know a lot of people think that these companies like own the politicians. It's not how it works. The government owns these companies. That's how Marxism works. The government owns these companies. They don't own them on paper, but they own them. They're holding the strings. Okay. That's what I mean. one of these companies get out of line, that, you know what, we're gonna have to ding that ESG score. Oh, now the CEO got dinged. Now he gets fired by the board because he couldn't keep the ESG. Like, that's how the game gets played. They've got at least one person on virtually every board in this country and every company in this country. All right. And it's not, it's not a situation. We all hate the relationship between corporations and government, but let's not get it twisted. It's the person demanding the money that is the one in power. There was a great soliloquy that they did in House of Cards, where one of the lobbyists was like all mad because of some money or whatever, and Spacey looks at the screen and he's like, money is, I forgot what he said exactly, but he's like basically breaks down like how these people think money. He's like, money is a McMansion in friggin' Texas. He's like, power. He's like, that's the stone rock that lasts forever. And believe me when I tell you, that's how these people believe. It just is, and that's how they behave. That's how they behave. So, Arlo, I appreciate your commenting over there on Rumble, man. You're training me to keep my eye over here, because for a while I wasn't getting a lot of comments on Rumble, and so I wouldn't look, and then all of a sudden I'd look, and now I'm seeing them. So I appreciate that. Wild Stallion. So one of today's great ironies is that the population control advocates and radical environmentalists are also what's that are also pro open borders, right? The causes in since the causes increase the population and more pollution. The climate change narrative is, this is their shtick, right? This is what they built their whole mass formation on. This is what, I mean. I just talked the other day about polycrisis, and like, you're going to hear that word polycrisis all the time now. That's why I talked about it. Is I was just like, get ready, because you're going to hear polycrisis all the time. Like, I could tell you this year and next year are going to be very active for these WEF folks. It's going to be very active. And it's going to be active because the bottom line is, when you look at 2024, you know, they don't know if they, like, there's only, even if someone says they're fixing elections, like, there's still an overwhelming populace that would make that impossible. like there's still an overwhelming, you know, they're worried about that, and the timeline is 2030 for them. So if they lost an election in 2024, if they lose, then now you're looking 2028, that the best they could possibly do is win in 2028. And then, because if they lose, you're getting DeSantis or Trump. That's who you're getting. So in the end, you know, either one of them, you know, neither one of them is going to be on board with the WEF BS. Neither one of them. So in the end, it's like, if you're in the WEF, you're like, we have it perfect set up right now. We're going for as much as we can get done right now. Like, we want to do as much damage as we can, because whoever takes over, if it's not one of our guys, then we need to make sure that whatever we've done is irreparable. And the only way to fix the irreparable is through a convention of states. This T-shirt is for sale too, by the way, guys. On the you can get the link to my website, just to give myself a shameless plug. It's says it's written in plain old English, and Article 5 is written into the flag. But yeah, so when it comes down to it, Article 5 is the way that you can repair such things. There's nothing that's irreparable when it comes to Article 5. So New Hampshire, if you take some time to take a look at the, you know what, let me see if I can pull that that link. I'll throw it into the comments. It's you can also go to Convention of States YouTube page. It's there as well. But let me see here. And folks, again, I asked this of you guys yesterday. For those of you watching, like, take the time. If you have questions about Article 5, by the way, and you ever catch me on live, I don't care what I'm talking about. Ask your question about Article 5. I will definitely stop and cover it. Arlo Perry on Rumble says, first time catching your show. what's your site or how to follow. You can follow us on Rumble. We've got a page on Facebook and a channel on YouTube. But since you're already on Rumble, I'm guessing you're somewhat aversive to YouTube. But we could use your support there if you ever do go to YouTube. Because YouTube definitely does not distribute us very well. On our website, you can register with your email there. I don't send a ton of emails out, but it is a good place to register because, and that goes for everybody, to drop your email to us on the website. You're not really going to see emails from me unless we get banned. If we get banned or we get thrown off, or once in a blue, I have a few blogs up on the website that I've written. If I add a new one, I'll usually email that out. But like I said, in the last year, I've written 3, so I'm not going to blitz you with email. But that's the best way to go about it, Arlo. And if you want to, on the website, there are links there for you to sign the petition. There are links for you to volunteer in your state. There's information. There are videos there. So there's tons of stuff, and then links through to cause as well. That with the petition and everything else. So that's where that would be the best way to do it. But folks, if you do go to the website and you do register with your email, make sure that you go and like validate the email. You know how websites make you do that? Like if that doesn't get done, because sometimes it goes to people's spam. If it doesn't get validated, they don't let me email you. They like, it's just like you never did it. So definitely, check your spam mail. Make sure you get the validation email because they require that on GoDaddy to allow me access. So, but I would appreciate that as well. What's this? DeSantis is open. Yes, DeSantis has indeed openly supported cause. No, Trump, I don't even think knows what cause is. And to be honest, like I'm just as well. I like Trump as president and all that, but like I'm just as well right now because he's so polarizing that like this is a unity movement. Like this is something where it would help, I suppose, in one sense if Trump jumped on board. But I feel like there would be just as many people that turn against the movement for no reason as there are that turn for it. You know what I mean? So like in that sense, there are certain things that I'm like that I just don't want Trump to touch. Like if it's something that's just a conservative value and a conservative belief that the left's going to hate anyway, screw them, go all over it. But if it's something that can actually have the potential to bring us together, I'd prefer not just Trump but all polarizing figures to just steer clear. Support it quietly if you want to, whatever, but like don't become the champion of it because it's just going to split people up even more and make the regular job more difficult. So but yes, DeSantis openly did say he would support a convention, even though governors have no role, but he would, they have a role in a sense that they can help influence, right? It's just like presidents don't write legislation, but they can, they can invite congressmen to the Oval Office and have those conversations and, build friendships, network, and have influence, right? So DeSantis could definitely help in that way. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if DeSantis, and he was clear when he said it, it's not like he just said it in passing, but if he were to champion it, I think it would go a long way because he's got the universal support. Like he's got, the people that hate DeSantis, they just hate everybody who's conservative. So those people you can't fix. But like, he's not polarizing in a way where even conservatives are polarized. You know what I mean? So that's why I would love to see Ron DeSantis take ownership and really try and hit one out of the park there. All right. I've hit the hour, folks. I promised myself that I would only do an hour, even though I keep getting questions. Whenever I keep getting questions, I keep answering them. But this time I'm gonna do my darndest to stick to that that personal commitment. And because I may just start coming on a little more often. I've been coming on lately because I work and work has been very stressful lately. It's been running me a little bit late, and I'm in California, so like all of my East Coast peeps, even though you may hear my accent and be like, this dude's definitely from New York. Like, nah, I live in Cali now though, so I'm on West Coast time. I'm in the People's Republic of California, but I'm inland. So like I live in the cool county, right? I live in Riverside County where like I don't deal with the LAs and Sacramentos and stuff. Our sheriff here during the mask ban told the governor to go F off and didn't he, matter of fact, he was letting businesses open. He could care less. So that's the kind of town I live in. And there are a lot of places like this in California, to those of you who are not familiar. But okay, so we're good on Rumble. Guys, I appreciate you always. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. Click the bell for the notifications. They will not send you a notification if you don't click that bell and select all notifications. And then Facebook, guys, if you're already following, go in and just double check the setting there under follow and make sure that you have it checked to get alerts, to get all alerts, because otherwise they're if you don't do it, they'll rarely send it to you. You're going to miss all kinds of cool content, all the updates that go on in the next couple of months. So there's a lot that's about to start happening, and I don't want people to miss it. So with that being said, I think I had one more. All right, so last licks. Danny says, Sheriff, true flag action. Yeah, sheriffs rock, man. Sheriffs rock. I'll just say that. And sheriffs around the country are standing up to a lot of these BS Second Amendment laws as well. So kudos to those folks. I know they did it in Colorado. They're doing it now. I think in I forget the latest one that's doing it, but a lot of sheriffs around the country are standing up. I think Washington did it, like where they're passing some crazy unconstitutional gun law, and the sheriffs are just like, nah, we're not enforcing that, because they could do that kind of stuff. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. So, all right, folks, until next time, be free.
And like that,